Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to check out the Pisces new moon, which occurs across the 27th or the 28th of February, depending on where you are. Pisces is the sign of culmination. It's the last of the 12 zodiac signs. All the experiences we've had in our journey through the previous 11 come up to the boil, so to speak. This is the sign of compassion, the sign of healing, the sign of spirituality, but it's also the sign which resists any kind of boundaries. It's a mutable sign, deeply sensitive, and because the traditional ruler of the sign of Pisces is squaring up to this event, it amplifies the delicacy of this year's particular Pisces new moon. Furthermore, for the first time since 2012, we have the North Node back in the sign of Pisces, and that's applying in a conjunction to the modern ruler of the sign of Pisces, the aquatic Neptune, which has been there full time in the sign of Pisces since 2012. So that's the big picture. I'm going to unpack all of this for you. I'll share exactly where it's occurring in your particular part of the world, but also I'm going to share with you the event chart from a solar but also natal perspective. The solar perspective is something we can all collectively relate to, so we get an idea of what this means for us all. But the natal perspective is really interesting because the sun and also the moon are in the third house, and that's very much about quick communications. And guess what? Jupiter's located in the third zodiac sign of Gemini, quick communications. So what can we expect? I'll go through all of this for you frame by frame to give you, I hope, a really clear picture of what to expect. Then please stay with me. I'll go through each of the 12 signs to give you a flavour of what the next month will hold in terms of the ascendant, sun or the moon, from Aries through to Pisces. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. All your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you're new here, this is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. If you've yet to sub, please help the channel to thrive and do so, but also click the bell notification symbol. If you'd like to talk to me one-to-one, I am a consulting astrologer. Please see my testimonials below. Also have a new way of working with people. If you want an astrology video of your situation, it's shorter than the one-to-one, but you can look at your situation in terms of 2 questions, your solar return, if you've an upcoming birthday, or your 12-month forecast. Please see the link below. Also, my special offer charts, which have been so popular over the years, they're still available. You can get your life roadmap report, but also your 12 months transits, and it's back to 30% off to celebrate the new website, which is now live. Please check it out at www.patrickarundell.com. But also, if you want to sign up for your free daily written horoscope, you can do so there as well. So this particular Pisces new moon, across the 27th or the 28th on the screen now, the exact locations and timings for you. But it's at 9 degrees and 40 minutes. Therefore, it's conjunct a fixed star called SCAT, S-K-A-T. Now, this is a really helpful fixed star. If you're a psychic, an empath, a healer, someone who works in the care industry, this is really going to amplify your natural qualities. But if you are someone who's got the moon in Pisces, and it's very close to this event, in fact, if you've got planetary influences from around about 7 degrees through to about 12 degrees, I feel that you're going to feel the resonance of this event very strongly. Now, as ever, if you've got angular relationships to this event, that can be more challenging. So that would be Gemini, it would be Virgo or Sagittarius, and of course Pisces itself. But I think the Pisces energy gives us a chance to reset, because A new moon is when the power of the sun, a more masculine energy, and the femininity of the moon, a more receptive energy, are combining for the common good. Now, it's just tucked up in the first decan of the sign of Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter traditional and Neptune modern. But in modern astrology, it's said that Neptune is the sub-ruler of that first 10-degree slot. So our perceptions are going to be heightened for sure. But on the screen now, I'm showing the solar event chart, and you can see that the square which occurs to the position of Jupiter is just over 2 degrees. And why this is particularly significant is Jupiter is detrimented in the sign of Gemini, but has also been taking quite a beating from Saturn in the sign of Pisces ever since the middle of July last year. Now that square is declining, but if we think that Saturn is very much about what's orthodox, very much to do with authority, can be to do with structures, which Pisces can wash away. But Jupiter in Gemini can be about the propagation of ideas, but not necessarily in a particularly honest way, because the quick communication of Gemini doesn't fit the more philosophical nature of Jupiter. So what we can get instead is claims, lots of claims. So if we think about this solar relationship with Jupiter in house 3 and the Sun and Pisces in house 12, that 12th house can be, in traditional astrology, about hidden enemies. But it also can be about endings, it can be about sadness, it can be about completions, but also separations. But equally it can be about betrayals. And I also feel, because Jupiter is really very competitive in a way in Gemini, it is seeking for our minds, Gemini, but also our hearts and emotions, Pisces. But the way that's going in terms of the news cycle isn't necessarily factually orientated. And I have been saying this for about 4 or 5 years, that we're now in an age where democracy is in danger of eating itself alive. We can have the right to an opinion, but it's important that we all try to be responsible with our opinions. So what we could get is a lot of smoke and mirrors, even on a new moon, in my view. So over the next month, it's very important that I think of all of us. Yes, a new moon in the sign of Pisces does give us a chance to ascend to a higher frequency of our potential in terms of compassion, being caring, being more conscious. Obviously the sign of Pisces through the glyphs is linked very much to Christianity, and it's important that people can have that right to practice and be respected for traditional faiths. But we've also got newer ways of people having their connection to others, and that can be through the psychic phenomena, for example. But all of this is a potential, and I feel because Saturn is in residence and we do have the North Node conjoining with Neptune, Saturn is actually the really influential player on this event. And to be honest, if you were looking at a person's natal birth chart as a professional astrologer, you'd still think that Saturn and Jupiter were in a square, even though it's stretched out, because when Saturn and Jupiter are in squares in people's charts, it does point towards the potential for limitation or difficulty. However, we could argue that Saturn is forging a much more robust angle to Mars, but then Mars in the water sign of Cancer is also in a detrimented place. It's in its fall. So lots to consider with this event. We do have Uranus forging an electrically positive angle, potentially, to Mercury, asking us to think outside the box and be open to new ways of doing things. But I'm sharing with you now on the screen the event chart from a natal perspective, and there are the Sun and the Moon in 9 degrees and 40. And the gathering of the other players in Pisces is all in the 4th house, which is about our sense of security, our sense of safety, where we feel protected or not. It can be to do with property, where we live, and Saturn is in the mix, and it's very close to that fourth house cusp. So Saturn is a very important player in this event, despite the fact that it has stretched out from Jupiter. So what I feel in this event chart, we see that Jupiter's in the 7th house, so that's how we engage with one another. The 3rd house is the message, but it's a more emotional message, and it's a message when our subconscious can be informing the way we interact with one another. So the more that we can drill through and actually get grounded, despite that mutable, misty, opaque, in some ways mysterious, some ways enchanting Piscean energy, we all need to find a moment of peace and quiet to connect to the power of the new moon, but actually connect to it in a way which is very constructive. And that could be, for example, releasing something that no longer works for us. And some of that, because of the cumulative energy of Pisces, may be past pain, past situations that didn't work out. If we're still angry, which is entirely understandable, that anger is eating up our energy and our peace of mind. But the other thing that could happen, unfortunately, on this event, because of the role of Jupiter and of Saturn, is that I feel that we can see a harsher environment and a more forceful pushback on people who are vulnerable and not the strongest members of society. And in that sense, we do need to see, because I feel there is a little bit of a pop astrology myth that Pisces energy is always hugely compassionate. If we think about the cycle of Saturn, it's really about 28 and a half years through its 29 and a half year cycle. It will move later this year on the 26th of May for 3 months into Aries, but it's coming back into Pisces through September through to the start of next year before moving to Aries. So that's coming to the end of a big journey. But the modern ruler of the sign of Pisces, Neptune, which can be to do with deception, let's have it right, that's coming to the end of a 164-year cycle, and that's going to move into Aries at the end of March for just under 8 months, but will move into Aries full-time early next year, and we start properly that 164-year cycle again. So these are big structural influences that are all informing this event. So if you read stuff or watch stuff that says you can set your intentions, you can bring magic into your world and all sorts of things like that, for sure that's possible, but we have to be realistic about the conditions, the environment that we're living in. And one of the big topics, I think, that perhaps doesn't get enough news coverage is the state of our rivers, our seas, our lakes, all the pollutants that are in them, the microplastics, the oils, the chemicals, the fact that where private companies have taken control, in Britain anyway, of public utilities, the safety checks and investment has really collapsed because more money is being raked off for the investors. Now, there has to be a balance. You do have to have private investment. You do have to have people who know what they're doing from a business viewpoint, but you also have to have a public sense of duty. So in some ways, what's going on with this Pisces new moon is we're seeing the outcome from a lot of policies and attitudes over a very long period of time. And it's not all good, and that is because of Saturn. So the North Node having inversed back into Pisces on the 11th of January, where it's going to be through to the end of July 26, is really asking us to become much more conscious of the direction of travel. And just to say, we've got a number of eclipses coming over the next year and a half or so between the signs of Virgo and Pisces. We've got one coming on the 14th of March, and that one is going to be a big push to us to become much more conscious about balancing the practical and health oriented and self-responsible energies of Virgo, very much to do with refinement and keeping things pure and clean, whether it's what we eat, drink, cook, the exercise we get, and how that informs our psychological and emotional welfare, Pisces. And because of the role of the node and also Saturn and Neptune, we're in for a time where there could be a public health crisis that is coming towards us. So I think for all of us, lovely to think about the more elevated side of the sign of Pisces, but we also need to stay resolutely grounded about some of the smoke and mirrors that's floating around, and the potential for things not being represented in the way that they actually are. And that's very much to do with the exaggeration that Jupiter can bring to this particular new moon. So whatever you read, whatever you're thinking about, just be aware of trying to get down to the earthy reality of whatever it is that's intriguing you. Please stay with me now as I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. But just to summarize the energy of Pisces, and particularly the moon in Pisces can be extremely perceptive, very, very sensitive, and can be influenced by energetic exchange. So in other words, we can all pull in and download what's going on in the world. So it's more difficult in a way to protect ourselves. However, it is important to set boundaries, which Pisces energy finds difficult because it's very much to do with limitless infinity. And also, of course, it can be a sign that can be very, very giving and compassionate. But one of the things that some Pisces people have learnt is that you can give too much and it's not always appreciated. So important to use that Saturnian energies to set our boundaries. But if you do feel that you have got something to give to others, something that comes from a source deep within you, this could be a time to set it free. Now, in terms of the combination between the sun and the moon, if people have that in their natal charts, I have it in my natal chart, but in Aquarius, people tend to be very single-minded in their approach to what they want to achieve. So if it is your birthday around this time, this is definitely going to be an opportunity for you to be more focused on taking a firmer grip on your life direction. But it's also important to make sure that we stay attuned to what other people feel, but at the same time we're not overly influenced by what other people feel. But Pisces energy can be a little bit subjective, and that's the thing to really remember with this. So I think all of our emotions are going to be amplified hugely, but particularly because of Jupiter. So Aries new moons have a reputation for an opportunity to reset, set that intention, and all will be well. But 12th house new moons are actually acutely sensitive, particularly when it is in the sign of Pisces. So from your perspective, one of the things that you may need to work on over the next 4 weeks is anything to do with your inner world that you're not completely fulfilled or happy about. Now, sometimes our discontent can come because our physical circumstances are so darn right challenging. We can't get that job. We work for someone who's not very appreciative. The package isn't very good. We're with someone who doesn't respect us, but it's where we live. These kind of things are not easy. But what I would say is that there's some parts of our way of being that we can work on, even if our circumstances are somewhat limited in terms of what it seems our immediate options are. So in other words, the relationship to the problem. And that's where a 12th house new moon, if you welcome it in, can be such a gift, because 12th houses can in some ways be to do with the part of life or the part of ourselves we don't really want to grapple with. So that can be our fears, our insecurities, maybe even our subconscious, the shadow side of our nature, that part of us which isn't perhaps so easygoing. And it's not easy necessarily to embrace that, look it in the face and own it. So those are the opportunities for you over the next month. If you do feel a bit stuck, by looking at what is difficult for you and being very direct in your gaze into the heart of that issue, but in a way giving yourself permission to be vulnerable, to perhaps own that it isn't as easy as you would like, but perhaps also to seek some important assistance. Now, one of the great ways that people can do that these days is to watch a video. There's so much information out there that can guide us all. Of course, there's self-help books as well. Maybe even visiting someone who's a professional, like a counsellor, a life coach, or a trusted confidant or friend who just knows enough about us to understand how they can be very empathetic, but at the same time give us some nudges in the right direction. Now, because your ruler Mars is now direct, it's not out of shadow until the 5th of May, unfortunately, but it is offsetting in its relationship with the limiting Saturn some of the challenges that Saturn has, I feel, brought to your situation over the last 2 years, which has perhaps made you feel lower in physical vitality, or made it feel that other people hold all the cards or have the power and leverage over you. So there may have been times over this last 24 months or so when you have felt a little overwhelmed, small in the face of the storm. But I want to reassure you, you do have Venus in your sign on this event. You also have Chiron, but don't underestimate the fact that you have a stunning solar eclipse coming on the 29th of March. And that's going to shift the paradigm. It's the last in a series, but of course Neptune joins your sign the next day. Now that could be challenging in some ways, but I feel it will be exciting in far more other ways, because it brings Neptune's energy into a much more proactive part of your situation. It's about getting on the front foot. And don't underestimate too the fact that we have the vernal equinox on the 20th of March. So there's 4 things: Venus in your sign, the solar eclipse, Neptune to Aries, and the return of the Sun to Aries on the 20th, which are going to shift things so that you feel that you're much more at the heart and not just waiting for events to somehow unfold. But if you are surrounded by anyone that you're not particularly sure of, whether it's gossipy colleagues or neighbours, maybe you have some friends that you're not completely sure about, on this particular new moon, it's vital that you're not too open to the wrong person. If you're open to the right person, it could be truly transformational. But if you do let something slip to the person who doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart, they could seize upon it with relish. And what can happen is whatever you feel profoundly sensitive about, they may in some ways share that information, but of course the retelling of the story will change each time. So it's all about really your relationship to whatever you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by, facing it up, accepting that you do have some vulnerabilities and some elements of your situation may be coming to a natural close. But it's all preparing the way and releasing things that no longer serve your greater good. That helps that way that's developing and racing towards you to make that even more exciting and dramatic and dynamic. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Taurus, they say that hope springs eternal, and over the last couple of years I feel Saturn has tested your hope at times, because he's been making his way through the part of your situation which is to do with the highest hopes we can have. Those hopes that actually go beyond the physical realm. And it may have been around some future plans, some friendships, some alliances, some collaborations where you've experienced some very intense disappointments. Or just something that you had set your heart on hasn't quite played out in the way that you had hoped. So this event gives you an opportunity to set your intentions on your new objectives, but with all the experience that you've gained over that last 24 months. And that experience is very useful for you. Because although Jupiter in Gemini can be a little bit too eager to see the upside, the square with the Sun can create a very generous vibe. It can create a very happy-go-lucky energy. For example, if you are collaborating with someone at this time who you feel you can rely upon, and there is something that you've got going on between you that has got a potential financial uptick, it could just play out in a very dynamic and exciting way over the next 4 weeks. Where you need to just be a little careful is if, say for example, a friend tells you about the latest side hustle, the get-rich-quick scheme. In that kind of situation, I'm not saying you should dismiss them, but just be aware of all the experience that you've gained. And because you are someone with a real appreciation of foundations, the moon's blessed in your sign, it's exalted. Venus, your ruler, is about values. It's about self-worth. It's about the foundations of life. You appreciate these things, stability, more than most. So really you're being encouraged with Jupiter in the mix on this particular event, not to be too profligate with your resources, but also to be very open to possibilities. It's about finding that balance. But of course your ruler Venus on this particular event is locked into your 12th house, which can lead to a deep review around a relationship situation. If you are coming to the end of an involvement, it's possible that getting together with your friends in a very upbeat, friendly and sociable way could be just the tonic you need. But I would just say that when it comes to the merriment, if you are wanting to keep yourself totally intact, you may just need to make sure that you're not overdoing all the calorific goodies, because that could lead you to feel a little bit So an exciting new moon for you, Taurus, particularly after some of the disappointments of the last couple of years, but you do have a chance to reorientate yourself towards something that you feel is much more achievable at this time. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Gemini, ever since Saturn made its way into Pisces on the 7th of March 2023, it's really been helping to focus your mind on what's really important to you in terms of goals and ambitions. Now Saturn always presents challenges, but it definitely provides opportunities. And the interesting correlation is that Saturn in the 10th house of your natal chart therefore fits with its redolent energies of the sign of Capricorn. So in other words, if you are someone who's been working very, very hard, very diligently in an applied, systematic and disciplined way towards some kind of big hope, you could have a breakthrough, a significant breakthrough over the next 4 weeks. But the converse can also be true. It may have been that over the last couple of years, a particular job you had or something that did mean a lot to you has actually really lost its luster. And if you're trying to reset, this is a new moon that can help you in that regard too. The key is to be conscious of Jupiter. For example, if you are applying for a job or doing presentations or trying to get clients for your own business, and it is, or the people that you're talking to are perhaps a little bit more on the conservative side, just be aware that the enthusiasm that Jupiter's given you needs to be moderated in some ways, because they may just feel that your ideas are just that. They're too optimistic. They're not based in enough factual reality. So that's a potential challenge for you. But also, I feel that there is a case to, at times, be very upbeat. And sometimes we have to fake it in order to make it. So if there is something that you feel very excited about, that you want to raise your profile around, you want to achieve greater recognition, you've learnt a lot of lessons along the way over the last 24 months, but you're up for the challenge, this particular new moon could see a breakthrough moment for you. But I want to say that ambitions vary from one person to the other. Not everybody wants to be a captain of industry. Some of our ambitions can be to do with our hobbies, can be to do with our interactions in local community work, can be to do with our grandchildren. It doesn't necessarily have to be all career orientated. So it's just really what you're feeling really serious about. And the other thing with the 10th house, it's not always about what we're doing outwards to the world outside. It's what we're doing and how the world views us. So if you're wanting in some ways to slow down the amount of work you're doing, take a bit more time for you, perhaps even retire, well, why not? A perfect time to do that too. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Cancer, if you recall when Jupiter made its way into the sign of Gemini towards the end of May 2024, there was a lot of trumpeting about how Jupiter in Gemini was very dynamic for the sharing of ideas and so on, and it can be, but for you it represents the 12th house, an area that's very much to do with deep reflection. Now, if you've turned that to your advantage, you may have gone on a course of study that may have been linked in some ways to healing or to spirituality itself. Your own knowledge may have skyrocketed in terms of your deeper motivations or understanding those of others. So if you've really embraced the delicacy of Jupiter in your 12th house, it may have been of great help. The problem was that about halfway through the journey of the sun in your sign, around about the 14th and 15th of July last year, that's when Saturn started to apply to Jupiter in a square. And of course, by the 18th of August, that was exact. So anything you were contemplating that was of a much more sensitive nature had to compete in some ways with Saturn's potentially oppressive energies in the 9th house. So there may have been someone around you who was inclined to poo-poo some of the beliefs or interests that you had, especially if they were perhaps a little bit non-conventional, because of course Saturn very much about convention. Or you may have encountered people that were so invested in their particular view of the world, their worldview, that at times it's just become really such a trial to be around them, because their dogma has been very hard to swallow. And also, if you have wanted to travel, do further education, in some ways expand your life, Saturn being in the 9th house has meant you've really had to work for it. It's not necessarily been easy. So with this event, with the position of the Sun and the Moon combining, squaring back to Jupiter, can bring that amplification to your senses again, but I feel in a little more of a liberated way. Now Saturn is still broadly square with Jupiter, but they're wide enough to give you some space. And it will not necessarily be a panacea when Jupiter turns up in your sign on the 9th of June, because it's going to clash almost straight away with Saturn and Neptune. To be absolutely precise, it's going to happen on the 15th of June. So there's more challenges coming, but I feel you're much more aware of what you won't take a step back around. So the philosophies and beliefs you have that really mean a lot to you, you're much more steeled to defend them. And that's a very good thing. So if you're wanting to travel somewhere or do something quite dynamic or adventurous or independent over the next month, you can do it on this new moon, but just be aware that Saturn is there and it is going to be very precisely and very carefully auditing and supervising every step of the way. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Leo, over the last year, Jupiter has been pushing you in a way to go for something that you feel really inspired for your long-term future. Uranus, on the other hand, is urging you to have the confidence to do something that might be different, daring, and in some ways take a break from what you've known, which has felt comfortable, but in some ways hasn't really allowed you to showcase the full range of your charisma and talent. That combination is important. The 10th house requires discipline. Uranus can in some ways resist that because it can be a changeable energy, and Jupiter in some ways can definitely give us the confidence to go for something, but we need to back that up with grit, and that's where Saturn comes in. And Saturn's been in the part of your situation for the last 2 years to do with very close alliances. Now that can be in business, it can be with who you bank with, it could even be in a romantic context, because the 8th house is where we're most invested but also devoted. But it also can be where in some instances we actually want to bring something to a close. So Saturn in the 8th house can be very, very tough. So if you have been going through a bit of a battle, if you're in a relationship, for example, where a partner doesn't get why you want to change your job, do something different, reminds you all the time about the financial reality, that may have been dispiriting. But then it may have been you that's had to play the adult in the situation with Saturn in the 8th house. So if one form of income has gone or dropped, that may have required some adjustment and flexing. Now, Saturn isn't necessarily the best at flexing, but the sign of Pisces is. So it doesn't mean to say that you haven't been able to evolve. Saturn isn't always about what makes life hard. It can, if we really apply ourselves, bring rewards. And those rewards could come, particularly financially, over the next few weeks, as long as your plan is workable. So the uplift that Jupiter brings to this particular event is very welcome, but not if, for example, you're trying to raise finance for an investment and the people you're talking to, you see it on the Dragon's Den, people go in and say, my business is worth £5 million, and they say, well, what's your turnover? Well, we haven't really traded yet, we've only done a test market. And of course they're very, very unimpressed by that, because something's only worth something when it's proven, and that's what Saturn asks us to do, prove something. So Jupiter in the mix of this particular new moon could see you be a little over optimistic. But if there is someone that you do feel that you can get closer to, and you do feel that you can work together on a longer term future, all I would say, go for it. Be open to it, but take it one step at a time, because the sign of Pisces can be hopelessly optimistic in some ways and just be so caught up in the emotion of the moment, not really check itself out on what the handrails are of the reality of the situation. And that's why I feel having Saturn there could at this stage actually be a real asset. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Virgo, on balance, your relationship sector is given a huge boost with this particular event. So this particular event does give you the chance to make some positive strides forwards around all sorts of connections. The most important relationship we ever have in our lives is with ourselves. If you have been experiencing some responses from people that haven't necessarily given you much uplift, do have a think on the back of this new moon how you may set your relationship to the relationship in a slightly different way. Are your expectations a little too high? Is it that someone's responses is more to do with them than it is to do with you? I can't deny that Saturn over the last couple of years has probably meant that you have had some ouch moments when it comes to people. They've either been short, cool, distant, distracted, unavailable. All of that's been possible. Or is it you that's seemed a little bit unavailable to the people that you've been trying to connect to? Either is possible. This new moon gives you a chance to be more optimistic about relationships. Mercury, your ruler, is also in the sign of Pisces. It's also forging a great link to Mars in your sector of friendship. If there has been some kind of blockage or breakdown in communication with someone you're fond of, this could be the ideal opportunity to seize the moment to take the lead, because Jupiter, the planet of hope, is in the part of your chart very much to do with that leadership. But it will be important to really be conscious of your listening skills. And even if you feel that you're very, very good at that, I feel it's something that collectively is really in decline. We're in a world where everybody wants to have their opinion, and their opinions are very much conditioned by wanting to be with people who confirm that opinion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have proper discourse, and sometimes even arguments, because that means that we learn something from another person who may have a different perspective or in fact more experience. But I feel generally this is a new moon that can work very well for you over the next 4 weeks. So if you are connecting with someone that you're finding very intriguing, just be aware that what Saturn's asked you to become conscious of over the last couple of years is to set your boundaries, but in a way that does flex, but also can be firm when the time is right too. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, over the last couple of years, Saturn has been asking you in quite a strident way to be more mindful of your welfare. How much you work, the amount of sleep you get, the amount of exercise, perhaps where you're caught in a situation where you're very obligated or feel penned in and don't have much choice, and that may have created a degree of exhaustion. Now Jupiter came along at the end of last May, and by the middle of July last year started to apply in a square to Saturn. So one part of your situation was pushing you to escape, and another part was reminding you of what you couldn't really leave behind. You had to think of others, you had to be mindful of where you had commitments, and that's created a chafing that's gone on really right through to recently. So this new moon could be an opportunity to really reset things in just a much more balanced way for you. Always important for a Libra. So Jupiter's still there. It's still saying that you can do things that give you a bit more free time and independence. You can still fulfill your obligations, but maybe you also know when to say no. And that's Saturn in another way encouraging you to be more self-protective. None of us can pour from an empty vase, and that's really the lesson of this new moon. So if you're in a job, for example, where you do feel, just very taken for granted, and there doesn't seem to be much feedback or acknowledgement or support, the framework of the situation is very wearing and it's very exhausting, look for another job, because that's your right to do that. And Jupiter in the ninth house is asking you to spread your net wide, to be very open-minded to the way that you could apply your unique set of skills. And that's really the scenario of this new moon for you. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies. And also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Scorpio, this could for you be a really lovely and auspicious new moon, because having Saturn in the fifth house the last couple of years has been a little bit of a party pooper. Can you keep the noise down, please? Now, with the sun and the moon collaborating, well, come on, we're going to have some good fun, even if the neighbours next door don't particularly like it. It's just that because Jupiter's in the eighth house, if there is someone who's really engaging you in some kind of way romantically, it's possible that you could get a little bit ahead of yourself on this situation, because Jupiter squaring both the sun and the moon is a very potentially happy and uplifting aspect, but it can be one that can make us perhaps a little bit too optimistic. However, if it's around your finances that you're wanting to do something that's a bit more daring, more speculative, the fifth house, Jupiter's kind of saying, well, here we need to bring the energy of Saturn back into the equation. Saturn can provide a little bit of dampening to the enthusiasm, but it's the stern parent who's saying, well, you can have the party, but if you're wanting to lend that money for that speculative business, no, because you haven't done enough research, you haven't investigated all your competitors, blah de blah. So if you are thinking about doing something that's much more ambitious when it comes to your resources, be a little more a little bit more applied before you dive in. But if there is someone who's really making your pulse race, might be difficult to resist them. But the other thing that can come up with an eighth, fifth house energy is, and this wouldn't normally come from Jupiter, but say in a partnership, if one of you does like to socialize a lot more than the other, and that's creating some perhaps intolerance or maybe even some jealousy issues, that may be something that comes up as well. Now, the other part of fifth house new moons, if you're not in the slightest bit interested in speculation, whether it's around love or loot, what you can do is have a lot more self-belief in your creativity and talent. So if you're just wanting to enjoy some hobbies or go out and have a more social time of it, this can be a lovely new moon for your sign in particular. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Sagittarius, Jupiter is your ruler, so it's really interesting. The square between the new moon is with Jupiter, which can, in the seventh house, give us a sense that things are possible in our connections to others. But what Saturn's been asking you to work out over the last couple of years, and Neptune before that, is the quality and the emotional connection, and not be quite perhaps orientated towards connecting to people who are super bubbly, great company, larger than life, who match your qualities of being very dynamic and fun to be with. So you've been on a little bit of a track here to engage with your inner world, or in a more practical sense, where you live. So if you are looking to do anything around the home or family, this new moon saying you need the buy-in of someone you're close to. If you've got that, it's all good and dandy. If you don't, no amount of enthusiasm or suggesting how it can be and how it will be amazing for them will necessarily change their mind. So you may need to just be conscious of that. But of course, the other part of it is that if there is someone that you're really drawn to, the seventh house, and you don't quite connect emotionally, don't ignore that feeling. And that's really what Saturn's been asking you to be more mindful of the last couple of years. Get and become more comfortable with the whole sphere of how things feel. And that feeling dynamic can compete with that part of you that just thinks that no problem is beyond you, as long as you really apply yourself with maximum enthusiasm. And the fact is, that's not really the issue. The issue is doing things that work for us and make us feel safe, make us feel nurtured, and make us feel in touch with our inner world. That's actually more important than any outer connections and excitement that we have. So that's really the opportunity, but also the test potentially on this particular new moon for you, Sagittarius. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. So Capricorn, for you, the new moon's in your third house: thoughts, ideas, beliefs, technology, short journeys, connections to neighbours, your neighbourhood, your everyday life, relationships with siblings. The sixth house, where Jupiter is about practicalities, it's about work, can be about life structure, can also be about things like pets, the sixth house. And so they're the themes that are washing around. When you get a 3-6 house square, one of the things that we can be inclined to do is get very sort of enthusiastic and a lot of nervous energy and need to do something with it. And then we can try to dive in to make that energy work in a productive way. So suddenly with the sixth house, we want to catch up on all the do-it-yourself tasks, or we want to suddenly go from a couch potato to an Olympian, and that enthusiasm doesn't always work. So the key over the next month for you is to prioritize. Prioritize what you're thinking about that's most important for you at the moment. And if you focus on that, and just be aware that Jupiter can, in some ways, kid us into anything's possible. It just draws it back to what's really important, to what you're thinking about and what you really believe in. That's important. But if you are having any discussions, for example, on a job, the one thing you shouldn't do is overpromise. Much better actually to say, well, look, use your Saturnian energy in the third house. This is the way it is. These are the experiences I've had. I feel I can bring a lot of positivity to the situation, but I want to reassure you that I also want to be very realistic, because that will give you solid results, and that's better than someone or me telling you what you want to hear. So that kind of approach will work best if you are talking about jobs. But the third house, of course, can be about those immediate everyday relationships. And you know, if you are wanting to upgrade your connections to neighbours or join in more with your community, a good time to do it. But if you're asked to, in some ways, volunteer for some part of that role, just be careful that you're not giving away your daily time onto something that after a while won't necessarily hold the same appeal. I also think it's possible for some Capricorns that you may be thinking about a new mode of transport or some new technology. Third house, those quick, short journeys. If you have thought about refreshing your personal presence, you know, if you've got an Insta page, you know, you're a so-called influencer, then this would be a good time to give yourself a makeover in a very dynamic way, for sure. But if you've never really thought that you're one for the digital age, why not do some journaling and use technology to help you? It's a way of connecting, perhaps even sharing whatever hobby or interest you've got. You might be surprised by the people you can connect to. And that's what the third house is about: connections, quick connections. So there is the opportunity over the next 4 weeks. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. Because your traditional ruler Saturn has been in the second solar house, that has been difficult, because one of the things that Saturn does it doesn't necessarily just dry up an old income stream. It can diminish our sense of value and self-worth, which in turn doesn't attract to us the same amount of benefits. So how we think is what we experience. So that could be something that you're working through in terms of your inner journey. Having the 5th house Jupiter there could mean that you're actually, if you're able to, going to be very generous to someone you really care for. If there is someone who's really pulling at your heartstrings at the moment, that side of you that does want to be more romantic could be emphasized by this particular new moon. But equally, having the sun and the moon combining in the 2nd house can give us an appreciation of anything that's remotely yummy and sensual. So you may want to go for it a little bit, particularly if you have been, very careful about what you've been eating and drinking since Christmas. Perhaps you've been on a diet, perhaps you've had a dry January. Whatever you've been doing, you may find that you want to be a bit more free-spirited over the next 4 weeks. But equally, if you are prepared to be a bit more flamboyant in how you use your resources, some kind of idea you've got at the moment could, if you really believe in yourself and you thought it through enough, could just come off you. And it may require that sort of gambler's instinct of just really thinking, look, I feel there is a gap here. I could do this. And in those kind of situations, sometimes people have multiple small investments they've made that don't pay off because they're not really connected to it enough. But if you really feel something, it feels really right for you, the verve of Jupiter in your 5th house, the sector of speculation, but also the sector of risk and fun, could just call out to you. But in the whole of this situation, I feel that this can be a time when, if you really have had to be a lot more careful with your resources, that the tide can start to turn from here on in. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope and lots of other goodies, and also check out all the ways that you can connect with me personally. Please see the link below for more. Pisces, this is your personal new moon, the most important new moon of the year. The fact that it's angling towards your traditional ruler Jupiter suggests that as long as you tune into how you feel, the 4th house of Jupiter, and you're sure of what you want to do, go for it with conviction, because that's what 1st house new moons are about. It can be about getting things off the ground, a new beginning. It can be about energizing an ongoing strand that just needs that spark of extra enthusiasm. It can be changing how we look through perhaps having a makeover, or perhaps refreshing our wardrobes. It can also be about just deciding that you're going to be much more in the moment, because one of the problems, particularly with having Pluto in the 12th house, is that, and this can be a Piscean energy, particularly with Neptune in your sign, of just tuning out a little bit and not necessarily being so applied in a physical way. So this is your time to grab the tiller and take a firm hold of it and be very single-minded about what you want to achieve. Not everyone is going to get it, but with Uranus forging such a tremendous angle to the players other than the sun and the moon, that's really saying to you that if you do something different or dynamic or futuristic, that will give you even more of a buzz. So this is a time to bring out, if you like, your inner Aries. The 1st house energy is about initiation. It's about having the confidence to take that step forwards, not analyze it. I feel that there can be times that you can be in a state of inertia, going round in the pool of water, because it's difficult to make a firm decision on what to do, because you're feeling and sensing and drawing down, soaking up so much different energy all the time. Now just go for it, and if you really focus on the prize that's important to you, the traction you gain will give you a great deal of satisfaction. And that opportunity, particularly with the dynamism of Mars in your 5th house, which is terrific for showcasing your passion, your charisma, linking so well to both the position of Saturn, but also very close to the angle to the position of Mercury. Your ideas, and Uranus in the mix as well, your ideas can be different, fresh, directed. Go for it, and go for it hard. It's been a real pleasure sharing this Pisces new moon video with you. Please do check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. Loads of exciting content there, and please also check out the special deals to have a reading with me. All the best, take care, and goodbye.